Natalie Reid was found cradling a newborn on her blood-streaked bathroom floor, but the mother of the child was already buried beneath her patio, and her name was Jennifer Black. On a rainy October morning, the 911 dispatch center in Franklin County received a frantic call from a woman barely able to speak. Her voice trembled as she gasped for breath, managing to say she was bleeding and believed she was in labor. The address led emergency responders to a small, one-story home tucked in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The front lawn was overgrown, the porch light still flickering from the storm the night before. Paramedics forced open the door when no one answered and found a chaotic scene inside. Blood trailed through the hallway and led them to the bathroom, where a woman named Natalie Reid lay on the tiled floor, barely conscious. In her arms was a tiny, unmoving infant wrapped in a bath towel. Her wide, panicked eyes met the responders as she whispered that there was another baby still inside her. Paramedics quickly stabilized Natalie and confirmed she was having twins. One had already been delivered in what they described as a high-risk, unsupervised birth, and the other still needed to be delivered. Both mother and child were rushed to the hospital under emergency protocol. The second twin, a boy, was born minutes after arrival. He was severely underweight and struggling to breathe, but alive. The staff acted swiftly to intubate and monitor both babies. The hospital listed the twins as premature, born at roughly 32 weeks gestation. Their bodies were small and frail, showing signs of trauma consistent with an unassisted birth. Natalie was kept under observation for 24 hours. She refused to answer most of the doctor's questions, including when her last checkup was or where she had been receiving prenatal care. No records could be found in any nearby hospitals or clinics. She had no identification on her, only a prepaid cell phone and a credit card with someone else's name. She didn't ask about the babies. She didn't hold them. The nurses whispered to each other that she seemed more concerned about when she could leave than the health of her newborns. When a social worker approached her with forms to name the children, she ignored them. Hospital staff noted her behavior as detached and cold, triggering a routine call to Child Protective Services. Within hours, CPS attempted to visit the home. The outside of the house looked rundown but harmless. Inside, the atmosphere shifted immediately. There were no signs of preparation for two newborns, no bottles, diapers, clothes, or even a crib. The refrigerator was empty except for an opened carton of milk and expired condiments. What disturbed the agents most was a closet door that had been blocked by a chair. Once opened, it revealed a scene that didn't belong in a nursery. There, among a pile of dirty blankets, was a towel with dried blood, an empty syringe, and a woman's wallet containing a driver's license belonging to someone named Jennifer Black. She wasn't listed as a relative. She wasn't someone Natalie had ever mentioned. But her name had appeared in the news before. She had vanished without a trace just 2 months earlier. The hospital staff couldn't shake the unease that followed Natalie Reid's brief stay. Nurses in the neonatal unit kept a close eye on the premature twins, whose tiny bodies required round-the-clock care. While tending to the firstborn, one nurse noticed an unusual bruise on the infant's thigh, a dark, round mark not consistent with a normal birth injury. A second nurse, assisting during a routine cleaning, pointed out a thin scratch along the baby's back. These injuries raised quiet concerns. It wasn't uncommon for premature babies to bruise easily, but something about the marks didn't feel right. The injuries seemed too precise, too isolated, and they didn't match the chaotic story of a sudden bathroom birth. The attending pediatrician noted the concerns in the chart but made no accusations. Hospital policy required documentation and further observation. The second twin, who had been delivered under supervision, bore no such marks. That difference alone was enough to justify involving Child Protective Services a second time, now with medical observations to back the visit. Natalie was discharged just a day after delivery, which raised additional questions. She signed the papers quickly, asked for no medication, and left without requesting to see the babies one last time. Security footage showed her walking out with only a small purse, her hospital bracelet still on her wrist. She had no transportation and declined any assistance. It was as if she was trying to get away, not go home. The CPS agents returned to her address the next morning. What they found inside only deepened the mystery. The house was nearly empty. The living room held a single folding chair, and the kitchen was bare except for a plastic bag on the counter containing saltine crackers and an open bottle of soda. In the back hallway, the agents noticed a foul odor. Following the source, they discovered a closet that had been concealed behind a draped curtain and blocked by a dining chair. Inside the closet were signs of recent use: a pile of damp towels, a soiled blanket, and, disturbingly, a streak of dried blood on the baseboard. Among the clutter, one of the agents spotted something that didn't belong: a women's wallet. Inside was an ID belonging to Jennifer Black, a 27-year-old nursing student who had gone missing without explanation 2 months earlier. Her photo stared up at the agents, smiling from a plastic window inside the wallet. Her name had been featured in local headlines for weeks before the search went cold. No one had ever tied her to Natalie Reid. There was no evidence the two had known each other, no mutual friends, and no obvious connection. The agents called police immediately. Law enforcement secured the property and began a forensic search. In a side drawer, investigators found a used pregnancy test, dated over a year old. The bathroom cabinet held a mix of vitamins, unmarked pills, and syringes with no medical packaging. Slowly, a chilling theory began to form: Natalie hadn't just faked her identity, she may have stolen someone else's pregnancy. Jennifer Black had vanished on a warm August evening while out for a routine jog at a nearby park. She had told her roommate she would be back within the hour, but she never returned. Her phone was later found tossed into a storm drain less than a mile from the trail. Her car remained untouched in the parking lot, and there were no signs of struggle. Search parties had combed the woods, lakes, and trails for weeks. Flyers were plastered across town, and news stations broadcast her smiling photo, hoping someone would recognize her. But as days turned into weeks, the case went cold. Police had no suspects, no evidence, and no clear motive. It was as if Jennifer had vanished into thin air. When her wallet was found inside Natalie Reid's house, the investigation reignited instantly. Police retrieved security footage from surrounding businesses near the park and discovered something critical. A blurry image from a gas station camera showed Jennifer talking to a pregnant woman near the pumps. The woman wore dark sunglasses, a hoodie, and stood uncomfortably close to Jennifer, who appeared unaware of the camera's presence. The timestamp was dated the day Jennifer disappeared. That woman, police realized, was Natalie Reid. Investigators now worked to piece together how the two women's lives had crossed. Jennifer had been a nursing student with a promising future. She was known for being helpful and kind, especially to strangers. As detectives dug deeper, they learned Jennifer had recently posted on an online community board offering help to single mothers, offering to donate baby supplies and even give rides to appointments. Natalie, or the woman using that name, had responded to the post under a different account and arranged to meet Jennifer at the park that day. It was the perfect trap. Police began tracing Natalie's movements over the last year. What they found was alarming. Natalie Reid didn't exist until 6 months prior. Before that, she had gone by Angela Hines in another state, where she had been suspected of involvement in a different missing persons case involving another pregnant woman. That case, too, had gone cold due to lack of evidence and a sudden move out of state. In both instances, she had presented herself as pregnant shortly after the other woman disappeared. Both times, no medical record supported her claims of pregnancy before the alleged deliveries. The pattern became clear. Natalie was targeting expectant mothers, isolating them, and somehow taking over their pregnancies. Authorities began to fear that Jennifer Black had been held captive for weeks, possibly longer, before the twins were born. But without a body or a confirmed location of where she had been kept, the theory remained chilling speculation. Police secured a warrant to excavate the backyard of Natalie's property. Cadaver dogs quickly indicated an area beneath the concrete patio. What they uncovered beneath the surface confirmed their worst fears. Hidden just below a freshly poured slab was a shallow grave. Wrapped in a tarp, the body of Jennifer Black was finally found, along with the shocking truth of how far one woman would go to become a mother. The discovery of Jennifer Black's body beneath the concrete patio was the turning point in a case that had already shocked the small Ohio community. Forensic teams worked around the clock to carefully document every inch of the burial site. Jennifer's remains were found wrapped in a blue tarp, her hands bound with medical gauze, and her clothes stained with blood and amniotic fluid. The autopsy revealed that she had died during or shortly after childbirth, but not in a hospital setting. There were signs of blunt force trauma on her head, bruising around her wrists and ankles, and evidence that labor had been induced with drugs, likely the unmarked substances found in Natalie's bathroom cabinet. Investigators were horrified to learn the truth. Natalie hadn't just stolen Jennifer's identity, she had stolen her children. The twins, born weeks premature, were not Natalie's biological offspring. A DNA test conducted quietly by the hospital confirmed that the babies belonged to Jennifer Black. Natalie had no genetic connection to them. She had orchestrated the entire situation, luring Jennifer with false kindness, holding her captive, and then attempting to deliver the babies herself. With no medical training and no concern for Jennifer's life, detectives began retracing Natalie's steps even further, uncovering a web of identities she had used over the years. In 3 different states, she had assumed different names, each time surfacing in communities where a pregnant woman had recently gone missing. In one case, she had posed as a grief-stricken mother who claimed to have lost her child in a stillbirth, receiving sympathy and donations from strangers. In another, she claimed to be fleeing an abusive relationship while visibly pregnant. The timing of each appearance coincided with a disappearance, but in most cases, there was no physical evidence tying her to the missing women. Until now, the psychological profile that emerged painted a chilling picture. Natalie suffered from a rare condition known as pseudocyesis, or false pregnancy, where the body mimics the symptoms of pregnancy without actually being pregnant. But experts also believed she exhibited traits of a severe delusional disorder, convincing herself that she was destined to be a mother, no matter the cost. Instead of seeking help or adoption, she devised elaborate schemes to insert herself into the lives of vulnerable women. Back at the hospital, security around the twins was tightened. Both babies were placed in protective custody as authorities worked to identify and contact Jennifer's family. When her parents were informed of the truth, they were devastated. They had spent months hoping for answers, never expecting that their daughter had given birth while being held against her will. They were given custody of the infants, naming them Grace and Eli. Natalie was arrested at a motel several towns away, where she had been hiding under yet another name. She was charged with kidnapping, murder, unlawful imprisonment, and multiple counts of identity fraud. When questioned, she refused to speak. She showed no emotion when told that Jennifer's children were alive. The only thing she asked was whether she could still be considered their mother. Natalie Reed's trial began 6 months after her arrest, drawing nationwide attention. Cameras lined the courthouse steps, reporters swarmed the courtroom, and the public watched in disbelief as the quiet woman at the center of a horrific story finally faced justice. Prosecutors laid out a case that was as methodical as it was disturbing. They described how Natalie had carefully chosen Jennifer Black, earning her trust through online messages and pretending to be a struggling mother in need of help. She used sympathy as a weapon, luring Jennifer into a trap with no way out. The jury was shown photographs of Jennifer's body, the crude medical tools found in Natalie's home, and the drugs used to force labor. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses testified about Natalie's history of changing identities, her eerie behavior, and her ability to vanish whenever authorities got too close. A former neighbor from another state came forward and recalled seeing Natalie visibly pregnant, only to discover later that no baby ever existed. Another remembered a different missing woman who had disappeared just before Natalie left town. Each piece added to the growing picture of a woman who had built her life on deception, fueled by a dangerous obsession with motherhood. Natalie's defense team argued that she was mentally unwell, citing delusional disorders and trauma from a childhood marked by instability. They tried to suggest she didn't fully understand the consequences of her actions. But the prosecution countered with evidence of planning, burner phones, false identities, rented storage units, and erased digital trails. This was not the work of a confused mind, it was the calculated behavior of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. The jury deliberated for just 3 hours before returning with a verdict, guilty on all counts. Natalie showed no emotion as the verdict was read, her face blank, her hands resting calmly in her lap. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom fell silent as the judge addressed her, calling the crimes monstrous and inhuman. Outside, supporters of Jennifer's family held candles and photographs, celebrating the small measure of justice delivered in her name. Jennifer's children, Grace and Eli, were thriving in the care of their grandparents. Though born under horrific circumstances, they were given a second chance at life. The community rallied around them, raising funds and offering support as the family began to heal. Jennifer's parents started a foundation in her honor to help protect expectant mothers and spread awareness about the dangers of predatory behavior in online communities. The case of Natalie Reed left a permanent scar on the public conscience. It was a reminder that not all threats look dangerous on the surface. Sometimes they come dressed as compassion, wrapped in a smile, hiding a darkness too deep to see. What began as a story about premature twins ended as a cautionary tale about trust, deception, and the devastating cost of obsession.